Good afternoon. I have Des with me. Hiya, Des. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, my name is Des Tong. Um, I'm I can't believe it to say this, but I'm an author, um, and also I'm a musician, which is my background. I grew up playing music. My dad was a pianist, and I used to play with him when I was 12 years old. And I've worked in the entertainment industry of sorts ever since. And during lockdown, um, found that I was going to do. I'm the sort of guy who never sits around doing nothing, and so I decided I was going to write a book, um, which developed and developed, and I got really stuck into it and ended up writing 5 books.
If you
Um, yes, it was something I never ever had on my to-do list. Um, I love reading books. I love crime books. I love people like Michael Connolly. I love Joe Nesbo. I love Donna Leon because she can be a real sort of relaxing read after reading the Joe Nesbo, which is really gritty at times. And as I say, it wasn't really on my to-do list, but it all came about because I was working on local TV in Birmingham, and I devised a program where myself and a drummer called Bev Bevan. Bev Bevan was with the Move and Electric Light Orchestra, and we drove around Birmingham. I drove the car, and we talked about all the old venues and the pubs and the clubs and the musos and the stories and everything. And we did 3 programs. We actually did it all in one day, and but we got 3 programs out of it, and it became the most watched show on the channel because it hit a spot. Nostalgia. Everybody loved what we were talking about. They identified. People would stop me in the street and say, "Wow, that program you did! I met my wife in that club, and I used to go to that pub, and oh, I knew that band and everything." So it got me thinking about the nostalgia side of it, and the stories. And somebody said, "What about writing a book about the show?" But there are people in Birmingham who've done that. So I thought to myself, because the actual research would have been horrendous. So I thought, well, why not take those memories and all those anecdotes you hear and all those urban myths that you hear, throw them all into a big box, chuck them around, turn them upside down, and then create 3 characters and write a story. So that's what I did. And when I finished it, there was I played with a band called Sad Cafe, from originally from Manchester, and one of our fans who I met, and when I got talking to her, she said, I asked her what she did, and she said, "Oh, I'm a proofreader." Hello.
Nice.
So I said to her, told her about the book, and she said, "Send it to me. I'd love to read it." So she got straight back to me. She said, "Des, I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm there. I'm with you. I know what you're talking about. I'm in the club you're talking about. I'm there with you. I know it." So she said, "You've got to do another one." And so what I'd done was, at the end of the first one, which is called Whatever It Takes, Babe, and we added the babe on the end because Andrew Spark, who's my publisher, said that Amazon in particular don't like similar names, similar titles. So you've got to have like a unique title. So we added the babe on the end. And it's actually the catchphrase of one of the characters who says it anyway. And so the ending was, it's an ending, but there's also an opening for book 2. So, as I say, it was in lockdown. and suddenly I was into it, and I couldn't stop. And so I really got into the characters. And it's funny because a lot of my friends who bought the book assume, because I've said it's based in Birmingham, and that's where I live, but it's not. It could be anywhere, and the thing is, it starts off in like the late 1960s, early 1970s, which is when my formative years in music industry were. So obviously, there was massive amounts going on in those years, and so many stories and so many episodes, but I wasn't in Birmingham in the late 60s, early 70s. I grew up in Manchester. So some of the characters and some of the places could be anywhere, because the girl who read it was from Liverpool and she identified with it as well. And some other people are from Newcastle and they've identified with it. And it was just that time when you used to get the gangsters in the clubs and you used to get the bands in the clubs. You know, it was an amazing time to be a musician because you could play 7 nights a week. And so that was the atmosphere I tried to put over. The fact that I said it was in Birmingham, it's a bit like the Archers. The Archers say that they're in Ambridge, but there's no such place as Ambridge. But they talk about going up to Birmingham. So that's what I did. I used Birmingham as like a focus, but in actual fact, all the little places I talk about are out of here, out of mine. So I suppose that's a bit of a long introduction, really, isn't it?
That's perfect. I love it. You've already answered one of my first questions, so that's good.
No, I as I say, I grew up playing in the late 60s, early 70s. I started off playing soul music, and I was in a band, and we used to back American acts who came over, people like Fontella Bass, who had a track called Rescue Me, and also Inez and Charlie Fox, who did a track called Mockingbird, and we went around the clubs backing them. And then I got introduced to a band from Liverpool called The Chants, and they were looking for a bass player, which is what I am, and somebody to direct the bands that they played with, or the orchestras. So I accepted that. The first month I was with them, we went to Brussels and did a month there, and then we came back, and then we went to Mallorca and did a month there, and then we went to Germany and went around the bases. So that was my sort of grounding in as a muso. But then I got into touring round with people like Real Thing and a singer called Jimmy Helms, and we were on the road constantly. I mean, I can't believe when I look back and see how many miles we used to do. And we used to do ridiculous things. We would drive from Manchester to Southend and play a gig and drive home the same night. Because that's what you did. You know, I mean, you didn't stay in hotels or anything. You just drove back, and then I got into session playing, and I played on the Matchstalk Men single, which I've got a silver disc for, and I produced Damien, the Time Warp, which I'm sure that everybody's had a dance to at one point. And I'm looking at it now. I've got a silver disc on the wall for doing that. And I work with, I mean, you as a session player, you didn't really, you don't sort of concentrate on one thing. You play it with everything, because you earn your living doing that. Lisa Stansfield and people like that I worked with in early days, and then I got offered to play on Sa Cafe's album in 1981, Olay, and that led to me being asked to tour with them. And from that, we never really stopped. And 42 years later, we're still playing. And this Saturday, we're at the Sunshine Festival in Worcester. And a funny thing was, we were booked to play on the Sunday, and we got a message from the promoter to say that Gilbert O'Sullivan was on the Saturday, and he'd specifically asked if we would go on before him because he was a big fan.
Wow.
Gilbert O'Sullivan.
Nice.
So we're doing that on the Saturday. We were in this amazing place last weekend, Farmer Phil's Festival, which is in Shrewsbury. And well, it was outside Shrewsbury, beautiful area where we were. And the rain held off, and it was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, we're really busy at the minute. But from the perspective of the books, it was like it was a bug. I couldn't stop, and I really got into the characters, and I got very devious with some of the characters. I remember one of my friends who used to proofread for me, and she rang me up and she said, "I don't believe it, you've just killed him." And I said, "Well, yeah, we had to go." And she said, "Yeah, but he was one of my favorites." I said, "I know, but he had to go." And she went, "Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. He did." and so, it was, and also the beauty of say, using the laptop is that I'd say, for instance, there's like an episode. I think it's in book 2, and I've when I've got to book 4, something comes up, and I've been able to link it back because it's not, they're not published yet. From the first one is, but 2 to 5 aren't. And so I've reading through, I've thought to myself, yes, that happened then. So I've linked it. It's subtle, and it's one of those things. If you read it, you probably won't. Well, you won't get it the first time, but if you get to book 4, then you'll think, "Oh, hang on a minute, I remember that." And so I've got sort of cheeky and devious putting things in and clues, and also I love Anne Cleves, who writes Vera, and also the Endeavour and Morse. I actually met Colin Dexter, a wonderful guy, dry as a bone, lovely guy. But he has a way, there's that many red herrings flying about. You usually think within the first 5 or 10 minutes, no, who's done that? No chance, because he's going to really send you down the river. And I've taken those sort of ideas and really sort of twisted it around and dropped something that you would not expect. And I try and make some of the endings like that. That you don't see it coming. I'm sure you do yourself.
Yeah. I love it. From being a musician to then writing like that is quite amazing. It takes some people years to sort of get that skill, and you just seem to have picked it up, and it's just amazing. I love it.
Listen, there's nobody more surprised than me. The one thing I'm coming to terms with is that the authors are they're a wonderful bunch of people. They're incredibly helpful. I met some lovely people. I was the guest where I met you at the show in Birmingham, and Andrew Spark, who's my publisher, invited me down as a guest to speak on that little panel that we did. But the one thing I picked up on was that everybody was so friendly, and like Dawn Torrance, she's been so helpful. You know, you ask her a question, and she's straight away, and she'll send you a load of information that you know, quite often in the music industry, people are very cagey, and you know, they don't really give too much away. But in terms of authors, it's been fantastic. I mean, I had experience of that before I even got into writing, when I used to follow a few people on Twitter, and there was a guy, Peter James. I think it was Peter James. Well, this guy wrote about Birmingham, and he had a whole sequence talking about the city, and he mentioned the custard factory. Quite a few people said, "What a weird name," but it's actually a place. And he was talking about that, and I sent him a message and said, like, yeah, I live in Birmingham, and it was the Bird's Custard Factory. You know, it's a real place. And there was a guy called Simon Toyne, who wrote.
Man.
Oh, you met him?
Yeah, he's doing my event in Brighton in October, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was sitting on the train, and this was while I was at local TV. I was coming home, and directly opposite me was a woman reading his book. And so I sent him a tweet, and I said, I'm on the train, and I'm sitting opposite a lady who's reading your book, Sanctus, I think it was, reading your book. And he instantly replied, and he said, ask her if she'll have a photograph. So I leant over and I said, I'm really sorry about this, but I'm actually talking on Twitter to the author of that book. And I showed it to her, and she went, oh, wow. And I said, he wants to know, could I take a photograph of you with the book? And she went, of course. So she sounded sitting there with this book, and I sent it back over the moon. You know?
Yeah.
So it's nice. And I think that sort of friendliness, you know, down to earth. I mean, we try with Sac Cafe, we try that equally with fans, people who contact us on Facebook. We reply to them. You know, and it works, because you know people respect that, and what does it take? A couple of minutes of your life, but it's made their day.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's that side of it is very important.
Yeah, I've only started doing this really since lockdown as well. I've been to some of the big crime writing festivals, and it doesn't matter who you talk to, from someone that's just released their first book to Lee Child, they're all the same. You know, Lee Child I met for the first time this year, which was just and he was lovely. People chatted, you know, and you know when sometimes you're talking to someone and they're like looking to see if they can find someone that they can escape to.
Yeah.
Lee Child gave us his full attention, there were three of us, and he wasn't looking around, he wasn't trying to, he was just chatting, you know, and it's just like, you're one of the most famous authors in the world, and I can't believe you're chatting to us. I think he was talking about Birmingham. I think he grew up in Coventry, but I think he spent some time, and
yes,
and it was unbelievable, and you know, it made my day, and I'll never forget that, because it was amazing, you know, and I've loved his books since I was a teenager. So yeah, it really is a lovely community.
Well, I think it's PR, isn't it? It's customer service. At the end of the day, and you know, you talk to somebody and they'll go and buy your book. You know, if you're dismissive or you're not interested, they won't.
Yeah.
But it's you know, and going back, same with the band. Those people who want to speak to us are the people who will download our album, or they'll buy our album as a CD or whatever, and they'll come and buy concert tickets. And that's what it's all about. That's how you make your living nowadays. You know, it's hard going. As I say, the whole author thing is new to me. I find it fascinating. I'm just getting into the promotion side of it. I suppose I'm reasonably lucky, because the Sac Cafe have got a big fan base, and I've advertised the book on one of our pages. So they've been buying fans have been buying the book and been bringing them to gigs for me to sign.
Wow.
Which is the other members of the band are a bit miffed. Because, it's that's the way it is. But I've yet to really get into the promotional side of it.
So you said that you've got one out so far. So do you have a plan for the following four? Is there a plan to release them?
Yeah, Andrew is actually Andrew's reading the second one as we speak. It's called In Flames, and I think he's talking about autumn release. So and he's already done the cover. He doesn't. In fact, he's done the cover for the first three. He doesn't hang around when he gets going. So those are done. I've actually, I'm proofreading all the time, like you do. But In Flames is ready to go. A Tough Act of One Last Encore is the third one, and then and that one is pretty well proofread, but there's a few, you can always find something when you go through it again.
Yeah.
The interesting thing that Andrew contacted me about recently is that Apple are bringing out a new series of talking books, and they're using this AI to do it. So, I mean, I had it down that I was going to do it myself, and in fact, I had a couple of people that I work with who were going to do some of the characters with me, and that is still a possibility. But I'm intrigued to hear what they do. I'm not a fan of it. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work in the music industry. There's all these adverts saying like, oh, we can do your jingles and with AI. No, you can't. They still sound to me robotic. There's no feel, there's no soul in them. But obviously, jingle companies, people who are out to make a quick buck, cut corners, they'll use them. But I don't think you'll ever find it on a hit album or something like that, because you can hear it. But like I say, I'd be really interested to see what they come up with on the book. Be interesting. I mean, it would be a big undertaking to do it myself, but I do that sort of thing anyway. I'm starting on Friday. I'm starting a new podcast with a guy that I used to work with on the local TV channel, and we were a bit like a double act, and we used to do What's On, but with very tongue in cheek. So we're actually launching a podcast coming up. It's called My Speedos Are Too Tight.
Yes, I saw that actually. Yeah.
And it's going to be madness and mayhem. We're going to have a look at various things that are going on and put our sense of humor across on them. The first one's about hotels and holidays in hotels. So
awesome.
We're recording that on Friday.
I'll send you the picture of my hotel in Brussels. It's definitely the weirdest hotel I've ever stayed in.
Yeah.
It's called the Hotel Mozart, and they really went with the arty thing. But it was like a little garden in the middle of it with a fountain. It was odd.
No.
Yeah, seriously, just weird. When you first sat down to start writing, you've obviously got the hang of writing the story and the characters, but was there anything you found more difficult than you expected?
Well, I think it was imagining the characters. It was getting the characters right in my mind, because obviously, once you've got that character, you need to have that. You need to know the character. And I mean, I remember reading about the Archers, how they have this massive encyclopedia of every character there's ever been on the Archers, and every trait that they've got, and every single thought that they ever have, because somebody along the line will go, no, they wouldn't have said that because they didn't like, they didn't like liver. They wouldn't have had liver and onions because they didn't like liver, and that'll have been said like 10 years ago. But I was very aware of how I was describing the characters and continuing it through, and not making any mistakes, and thinking, and writing something. Yeah. Oh no, hang on a minute. No, she wouldn't have done that because she didn't like that or something. So yeah, that I think that was possibly the one of the hardest things, and also describing environments as well. As much as you want the person who's reading it to use their imagination, you've still got to give them guidelines of what it is. And I was talking about clubs and the vibe in a club and stuff like that. And it's interesting that people have said to me, "Oh yeah, I remember that club." They don't, but they think they do. And I think maybe that I've actually won that one over because they've identified with it. But that side of it, I'm always very, very aware of, am I over describing or am I under describing? And I think there's a happy medium. Sometimes I read books and I think to myself, oh God, it's going on and on and on about something. Whereas, it could have just made it in one sentence as opposed to 3 paragraphs,
or pages.
Yeah.
I think Charles Dickens is famous for that, isn't it? Taking 3 pages to describe something.
Yeah.
But then he was getting paid by the word, so you can't really blame him, can I? I would have as well. Do you have a favourite character? The most fun character you write, actually, I should say, instead of a favourite. Who's the most fun to write?
Fun one. Well, in the first book, there's a club owner. He's actually based loosely on somebody that I worked with many, many years ago. But there again, it's not just one person, because there's 2 or 3 guys that I knew and I worked with, and I sort of mixed them all together and created one person. There's a lady called Janine who is a really feisty character and becomes, over the books, becomes more and more important. And I've enjoyed working with her. She's good fun. And then there's a musician, Pete Peterson, who's one of the main characters. And I mean, somebody said to me, "Oh, is that autobiographical?" No, it's not. But there's a lot of him in people that I've known, that I've worked with, and that I've experienced. And again, it's a load of stuff I've rolled into one. And so yeah, he was good. He was fun because I've sort of I've gone through his career with him, and the ups and the downs and whatever's happened. So yeah, he was good fun. He was good. And there's a great in book 2, book 3, there's a lawyer, an American lawyer called Vonda Statzler. And she's one of my favorites because she's this high-powered attorney, but every day she wears a different rock and roll t-shirt and a pair of jeans and cowboy boots. And so every every day when I describe her, she's always got a different T-shirt on. So that's been fun because I've researched all the T-shirts, from Sergeant Pepper to Jimi Hendrix to the Beatles, and all that sort of stuff. So she's fun. She doesn't appear until about 3, but then she is quite a good character.
How did you choose your character names?
Yeah, well, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I try to make them original, and I try to not make them too obvious. And sometimes, like von der Statzler, for instance, that took me quite a while to get that, but I knew what I was after. It was just changing the letters, and just making it feel right. Pete Peterson, yeah, he sort of, I just thought, late 60s, early 70s, it was a sort of name that you would associate. So the club owner's called Jerry Fortuna, and again, I messed around with the letters to get it right, until it sort of, to me, it sat right. To me, Jerry Fortuna, he's a high powered businessman. He's very tough, but he's also very caring, and so yeah, it was. There was a record label, and I wanted to. Because Pete Peterson signs to this record label, so I wanted to come up with a name, and that took me ages to find one that didn't already exist. I was Googling like mad, and things. Oh, every time I come up with a great name, no, somebody's got it. But I eventually found this. It's called Westoria Records, and it's actually, and funnily enough, I've just finished an album with a friend of mine. We wrote it together. She's a singer called Sissy Stone. She was actually at the Doing in Birmingham with me, and I've formed a company, a record label, and we've called it Westoria Records, just to keep it in context. But that took me a while to get right, because whatever I put in, there was a company called that, So, but now I've got that, so that's my little label.
I love that. And that's a bit of an Easter egg as well in some ways, isn't it? You've actually done it, then yeah.
Well, one of my plans is to, because going further on in the books, one of the guys releases an album, and I'm toying with the idea at the minute of actually writing and recording the song that's in the book and releasing it on, and seeing what happens.
Well, yeah, why not? And it's easier to do it now than ever, isn't it? So it is, yeah.
Well, the album that Sissy and I've just finished, I actually wrote on this laptop, in this corner, because I've got all my system is here. So it's remarkable what can be done now. It just is amazing, and technology is fantastic. I think the one thing about technology is, though, if the day you rely on it is the day that it will bring you down. You've always got to have plan B.
Yeah.
Whatever that will be, especially in music. The one thing about, I use computers to compose music, but I can play most of what I use. It just so happens it's easier to do it on computer sometimes.
I always swore I'd never get rid of my CDs, because all this technology, what if it all broke down? And then it's like they take up space and I don't use them, so did I really keep them? But then what if the internet does implode one day, and then all my music and all my photos and everything will just disappear? So yeah. What can we do? When you're editing, or when your proofreader's reading your book, what words or phrases do you most overuse?
Overused.
Yeah, what do you get shouted at for?
Yeah, Andrew, did he say? There was a phrase that I used. I can't remember what it was now, but Andrew pointed it out. Andrew Spartan. He said, I'm not objecting to it, but he said, all I'm doing is telling you that it does crop up quite a lot, which yeah made me more aware. I mean, I do go to great lengths to. I hate repetition, and I'm sort of I'm into my thesaurus all the time, because if there's another way of saying it, or is another word you can use, I can't believe sometimes when I'm reading other books, and the repetition in a paragraph is outrageous, and I'm thinking, could somebody not have that pointed it out to you? But maybe they haven't had a proofreader or something. I don't know. I know the girl who proofread the first book was very hot on that, and she pointed out a few things that she said, no, you could have said that a little bit better. And I learn very quickly from when people say things like that. I take it on board very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone has their phrases and their words, and I mean, often it's just, and a lot of people have their characters nodding a lot or shaking their head or silly things that until someone else reads it and points it out, they just don't notice. And I think I love it. It's hilarious. And it tells you a lot about their personality, I think, because obviously the first thing they think for their character to do is nod or whatever.
Yeah, just I think just was one of the words that Andrew pointed out.
Yeah, it usually is.
Yeah.
About 90% of authors I speak to is just. So you lot just need to get rid of it. Just stop using it.
Yeah. Yeah. Simple as.
So do you have any plans beyond book 5? Obviously it's quite a way off, but
no, I do. I've actually got a lot of ideas down. I was planning on book 5 being the end, because it does have quite a drastic ending. It doesn't pull any punches. It's like a big ending. But like with all the others, I left it slightly open so that there was a continuation. And I wrote an epilogue, which well, in fact, Sissy, who I mentioned before, she proofreads for me, and she said, you're into another book with this. It's too long. You why have you gone to all that? Because most of what you're saying, that's the first chapter of your next book. You should have finished it there. That's enough. And then that's the cliffhanger, and then that's the oh my god, I want what happens next sort of thing. So I shortened that, and that went into the first chapter of book 6. But what I'm trying to do is, because I sort of the first, whatever it takes, babe, is in the UK, sort of based in the UK. But in Flames, they go to America. So, but they come back. It's not all in the States. They do come back. So what I'm trying to do is have on book 6, even though there's a lot of things going on in the States, I want to bring it back to the UK, because there's a couple of really interesting ideas I've got that need to be in the UK for it to work. So yeah, I've started on that. To be honest, I've got that much going on at the minute. It's one of those things. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'll write a chapter, or just a few paragraphs or something, just to get the ideas down. But I've got we're recording some new material with Sac Cafe at the minute. We're promoting the new album that I did with Sissy, and I'm doing some promo videos for that. So it's a case of scheduling what what I'm doing. I mean, the gigs with Sad Cafe are ongoing. We do probably 2 or 3 a month, which is great. Keeps you ticking over. But I don't sit around and do nothing. I hate that. I'm always thinking of things. I mean, before you contacted me, I've been researching. There was an idea I wanted to put in a video that I'm doing. So I've been on YouTube, and I've done a tutorial this morning on this particular. It was an explosion that I wanted to use, and so yeah, I just do that all the time. My computer is not for Amazon and eBay. That's in fact the only time I use it for Amazon and is if I need a new plug or I need a new cable or something. Other than that, it does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I was just finishing reading a book. That's what I do. Just read constantly, pretty much, because I have so many books to read because I blog.
I read at night. I'm just reading the new Joe Nesbo, who I really like. But I love Michael Connolly as well, and Bosch. His series on TV, Bosch. The production of it was superb. It's on Amazon, isn't it? So it was on. I think it's on this new Amazon channel, but it looks so good. The production values and they're quite faithful to the storylines, which is something I really like. And I've got a friend. I many years ago I worked for a company in Banbury called Audio Motion, and we did motion capture. And I was the audio in the motion capture, so I had my own studio. We did sound effects and voiceovers. Robbie Williams came in and did stuff, and various other John Coulshaw and people like that. And the guy who I worked with there, I lost touch with him for quite a few years, and turns out he's moved to America, and he contacted me via LinkedIn, and he's now working on a motion picture that is all CGI. And it's incredible. I mean, he sent me a couple of little snips from it that are just stunning. And he's asking me now, would I be interested in doing the soundtrack for it? So that looks like I'll be doing that next year, possibly. They've got Jerry Bruckheimer interested in it. Wow. So it's like it's movers and shakers. So that's something that might be quite interesting as well. And they also want one of the songs that Sissy and I have written for it. So yeah, that's as if I haven't got anything else to do.
Yeah. Good luck fitting that in.
Yeah.
But how could you possibly say no to an opportunity like that as well? Like that's a once in a lifetime thing, I would imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's just one of those things, what I'm quite excited about this new ideas that I've got for this book. I haven't got a title for it yet, but it's tickling my fancy. You know what I mean? I can wake up at night and I'm thinking, oh yeah, he should do that. Oh, and I've got a couple of really good names for people, and so yeah, that's.
You've got the bug. That's what's happened.
Yeah, it is. And as I said before, I would have never thought. Yes, it's a whole new experience of a different sort of creativity.
So, do you have any plans for promoting the new one in the autumn, or have you not got that far about thinking about that yet?
No, I mean, I'm getting lots of people who've read the first one saying when's the next one out, which is nice.
We're very demanding, us readers. Especially people that can read quickly. We're like, come on, it's like it's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
months now, but we read this in like 6 hours.
Well, I've a lot of people have said the first one's a great holiday read. So, and I've had about half a dozen SAG Cafe fans saying like, bought your book, taking it on holiday. And three of them have already come back and said, wow, when's the next one out? So obviously I'm getting something right, with the with the cliffhanging ending and cheeky things like that. Yeah, I'm looking at ways. I mean, it's music's. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's logical for me how to promote it. You do a gig or you do a video or that. The books are a bit more tricky, I think. I've got to figure out ways. I mean, I think once I get, say, the second one out, and then maybe even the third one out, it will start to come together, because you'll be able to, even if you say the third one, somebody picks up the third one. Oh, there's two before. Oh, wow, and they'll go back. So, and yeah, I mean, I'll keep plugging it on the SAG Cafe stuff. I've read that libraries, about approaching libraries, and things like that. And there's one of my fans said that she'd do a I don't know, a signing or something in a local shop. So I don't know where that is though. So, but yeah, early days yet, really.
Yeah, libraries. I've met a couple of authors in libraries that have done little events. I've been to a little bookshop near me and they've done an event with 3 authors. So yeah, definitely. And they'll support you massively, better than the bigger
Right.
like Waterstones and stuff. But you can do stuff with Waterstones, they're pretty good with authors and releases and stuff. So, and then social media, of course.
Well, social media, yeah, obviously is really important. I'm just show you my book.
Yes, I was going to ask if you had one. That's an awesome cover. I love that.
Yeah, Andrew has got this. I think it's him and a lady who does his covers for him, and they're really. When he sent that to me, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'd never had any thoughts about a cover, and they just came up with that, and it was just wow, fantastic. And they've done the same with In Flames as well. That's so yeah, interesting.
Do you have any goals as an author? Is there anything you particularly want to achieve?
I would again, it's something that a few people have told me. I would love to see it made into a film, or maybe not a film, maybe a TV series or something like that. I kind of write like that. I think in terms of dialogue and how it in my mind, I'm looking at people talking and where they are in the scene, and what what would happen, and I try and make it believable, so it would translate to being filmed. I've got into filming recently because I've been doing all these promos and things like that, and when I was at the local TV channel, we did quite a lot of things like that. So I'm very aware of how things look, and I visualize things, and I visualize scenes that I would like to think that but obviously until I've got, say, 2 or 3, that's the sort of time because the first thing that anybody's going to say is always, is there any more? Well, if I've got 3 books that have been published, yes, there are. And the good thing is it's the story that continues, so they're not disjointed. They do link together.
Yeah, it sounds, I must admit, from what you said, it sounds like they translate perfectly. Yeah, probably more to a TV series, like a Netflix series and stuff, but it does sound like they're made. a really fun series. So yeah, hopefully that happens. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, me too.
Then you've pretty much covered like everything in the sort of arty industry, except for maybe painting. Perhaps you could give that a go just to make sure you have the whole package.
No, can't paint.
Well, at least you're giving some others out there a
I can't
chance.
draw and I can't paint. That's the one area I'm totally useless. That is painting and drawing.
Well, at least there is some fault there. At least you
Yeah.
give others a chance.
I paint with music.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. That's what we want anyway. Music is everything. So, and then books and books maybe. I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything really obvious that I haven't asked you that you want to tell us about.
No, I think we've pretty much covered it, haven't we?
So,
it's wonderful to be able to talk about the book. There's lots of other things I do. I've got a YouTube channel, Des Tong TV, and when I was at the local TV channel, I did a series called Life Stories, which came about by chance, really. The guy who was the main person at the channel started doing this series, but they were quite serious. There was a Auschwitz survivor and a 92-year-old wing walker and a blind marathon runner, and they were fantastic. But somebody said, "Can you not do a bit of entertainment? Can we not have a bit of, And so he turned to me, and obviously because my background, and he said, "Who can I get?" And I suggested this guy who was like one of the big names in Birmingham, who organizes like jazz festivals and used to manage Black Sabbath, and who I knew. So we booked him to come the next day. And when I got to the studio, the guy said to me, "I can't do it." He said, "I don't know him, but you do. So you do it." And so I had to go out and buy a shirt and a razor and tidy myself up. And this guy came in, and we basically, it wasn't an interview. We basically sat there and chatted about what we knew and who we knew and what we'd done and everything. And at the end of it, everybody said, "Wow, do another." So my second guest was a guy called Brian Travers, who was the sax player with the UB40. It was a very old friend, sadly no longer with us. But Brian was an interviewer's dream because, like me, he never shuts up. And so you ask him one question, and he would just continue until you stop him. And what you'd have to do is you have to wait for him to take a breath and then dive in with the next question. And so we did that. And it just started, it snowballed. Now, basically, I was going through my little black book and inviting people that I knew. People, well, Jasper Carrott came on, and Bev Bevan, who I mentioned before. So just some amazing people from the entertainment industry. They're all on this YouTube channel. And to date, I think I've had 500,000 views of the series.
Wow.
So it's quite, it was great fun. Paul Carrack came on, and Paul Carrack had sung on a Sagafe album that I was producing. And so we knew each other. I think what I tried to do was, it wasn't like question answer. It was just a conversation, because we already knew each other. There was no sort of gray areas. It was just like, "Oh, mate, how are you? Nice to see you again." Or I'd played with them, or things like that. So and I'm still getting comments on it from various people that, they obviously, if you type in Paul Carrack, the interview at some point will come up on the chain. So and that was great fun. I really enjoyed that. So that's Des Tong TV. and the Sad Cafe thing. The Westoria Records has got this album that I've done with Sissy coming out. So yeah, and then the books. So Andrew, like I say, Andrew says that I think he's talking about autumn, so that probably be September, October time. I know he's reading it now, so so that should be the next one.
Yeah, well, let me know and I'll promote it in my group and stuff as well, and give a link and stuff. Do you want to hold up your first one again so people can see what they can go buy after they watch this?
It's on Amazon. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, on Amazon. Perfect. Well, it's coming up for a bit late for holidays, but perfect holiday read. And yeah, there we are.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And my pleasure indeed. Lovely to meet you again.
You too.